Are you a business owner or employee who needs to network but is terrified of walking into a room full of people you don't know? Are you afraid of being left out of conversations or being awkward in the conversations you do have? Your tour guide, Faithann, is here to walk alongside you through the networking terrain, offering tips and tricks to network with ease. She'll also bring insightful interviews with successful business owners who have used networking to expand their businesses. Building relationships is the heart of networking, and generosity is the cruise ship that will navigate you toward those important relationships for your business or career. Grab your sunscreen and suitcase. Faithann is ready. Are you?
Hello there, and welcome to the Networkers Tour Guide podcast. I'm glad you found the show. Networking is providing opportunities for others that they would not have except for you, so that you have standing to ask for opportunities from people when you need them. How do we create opportunities for others, and how do we ask for those same opportunities? Well, that's what this podcast is all about. It's what I'm here for. Let's dive into episode 53. Welcome to this episode of the Networkers Tour Guide podcast. This is the first time listening, thank you for landing here on this podcast for all your networking tips and tricks. And if you're coming back, thank you so much for coming back to the podcast. I feel like I have the world at my fingertips sometimes just through my network. And so this is a guest episode, and how my guest came to be in my purview this time is I put out a request on social media for somebody who's very familiar and has insight around body language, because that's a really fascinating topic to me. And within a few minutes, I had the guest that I've invited on today, Leah. Leah, thank you for saying yes to coming on the podcast, and tell the listeners what you do for people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Faithann. I'm super happy to be here. I am a communication and life coach for people. I help people get out of their own way by saying yes to themselves and just recognizing their patterns and kind of moving forward in a different direction that more aligns with who they want to be.
And what's the most rewarding part of working with people in this way?
Honestly, it's when people have this moment where they have like a judgment free moment, and you can tell that they would have otherwise judged themselves and said something mean about themselves, and they are able to become more neutral and even more like have more self-love.
That is cool to be a part of that. It reminds me a lot of this curiosity that I'm always talking about, less judgment and more just curiosity about how we work with each other, about people and ourselves, which of course you specialize in. So thank you for coming onto the show, and you're going to give us some insight onto body language. And I was thinking that since a lot of times, our very first interaction with potential referral partners, people that we would love to have mentioned in names that we aren't in, and the people that we want to pass business to, we're going to meet them at a networking meeting. And so the more we can understand how our body is talking, not just our mouth, the better we can build rapport with people. So is it okay to start with maybe just some insights about how our body communicates in a negative way that we may not realize?
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of like talking to people at networking events, right? A lot of times at these local networking events in real life or even virtually, you have an opportunity to tell people about who you are and what you do and what you're looking for. And I've been to a lot of these events, as I know you have too. And I know that we have seen people who are really good at conveying their message, people who are kind of average at conveying their message, and then people who could be saying the same thing, but their body language says something totally different. Their body language says, I'm insecure, I'm scared, I don't trust myself, I am uncomfortable. And we've probably seen people in these networking events multiple times. And the more you watch them go through their introduction, generally the better they get, because it really is about figuring out what your message is and how to deliver it in a way that people can hear you. So I would say if we're going to start there in terms of like that very first standing up in a room full of people that you may or may not know, which is pretty scary to do. And I remember the first time I did it, I was like, I'm terrified right now, and I have no reason to be terrified. No reason. Kind of putting your head up, your chin up is one of the first things you can do, because that really conveys, I guess, not even authority, but just confidence and being for sure in who you are. And then also what you do with your hands. Are you fidgeting them? Do you have your arms crossed? Do you have one arm crossed and holding onto your elbow? How are you positioning your body when you deliver the message about yourself? And those initial things that people see of you, I think sometimes people realize, oh, you're actually the perfect client for me, because I can tell that you are unsure, that you need more confidence, that you need to speak in a different manner. Maybe you're rambling, maybe you're talking too slowly, and you can really tell at these events people who are confident with their delivery and people who aren't.
Yeah, I one of the things that I always try and do is be standing. If at all possible,
Yeah.
I'm during my introduction time, I am standing because it instantly elevates my credibility. And there was a month or two ago, I was at a meeting where it wasn't possible for me to stand. Just the way that we were sitting, it just wasn't possible for me to stand. I was boxed in. So I got up on my knees because I knew how important it was that my posture be as tall as I could be, because I knew
Yeah.
that would affect my confidence. And and I talk about, and you can tell me how what you think about this. Uh, I think sometimes if we're not careful, we may think that we can borrow the energy from the people who are listening and bring it up to ourselves to help us. And really, you can't do that. You have to come with the energy, and then there's an energy exchange. Your energy and confidence exudes onto the room. And when those people feel it, they bring it back to you, and it's an exchange. And that's the ideal situation. What do you think about that?
I totally agree with that. And especially how I kind of approach things is, I think that if you can be comfortable yourself, then you make other people around you comfortable. So generally, like, there have been a few times where for whatever reason I'm out of breath. Even though I didn't run, I wasn't breathing deeply enough. And then here I am trying to get words out, and I'm like, ugh. And so what I do in those situations, rather than being like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," I just make it an opportunity for a comedic break, and I'll say something like, "Don't worry, I'm not a runner in my daytime job," or like,
Mm.
I don't normally do running," just something to get people to be like, "Ah," have a little moment reprieve of like laughter or a chuckle or something like that. And I also think that when you're depending upon what your business is and what you're marketing, getting audience participation, because really, yes, you're in a networking meeting and a networking group, but when you have the microphone, when you have the stand, they are your audience. And remembering that these people are your audience, and not just thinking like, oh, I can say whatever up here because I'm just talking with my friends. Maybe eventually, but there's always going to be someone new in the room who you don't know. And so I try to find something that I can do to have everyone participate. So, since kind of what I tend to do in my business is I do a lot of meditative work and I do a lot of breath work and we do a lot of like centering. So I'll stand up there and I'll say, everyone take a big deep breath in through your nose, hold at the top, and then release. And everyone does it. And I do it 2 or 3 times. And then I say, this is something you can do anytime to reset your nervous system. And so I'm not just giving them the opportunity to take a breath, which most people do not breathe deeply enough and do not have intentional breathing. I'm not only doing that, I'm helping them with their nervous system. And then I'm also giving them a little nugget to take into the future, whether we work together or not. And then when they see me at another meeting, they'll be like, oh, I remember to breathe and I think of you sometimes.
That is excellent. So, listeners, Leah's saying make your 60 seconds, think of yourself as being on a stage. I say that so often. Like, the 60 seconds is different than the rest of the meeting. So, you need to treat it like that. And that's what Leah's telling us. And then I love how you're mentioning do something that gets the audience involved. And we call that a program interrupter. When you're interrupting the flow of just person after person after person, sometimes just droning on a little bit, and you kind of space out and you're thinking about what am I going to make for dinner tonight? And then Leah comes up and stands and tells the room, take a deep breath. Now you're interrupting, and now they're paying attention to you. That's a great tip. So, as a listener, if there's something you can do to interrupt and grab attention, do that. You can say provocative things. Like I say, I feed hungry networkers. At least that's what they tell me after a strategy session with me. You can use pauses too as program interrupters. I love though how they're attributing you with an action. That's really good. Let me ask what you mentioned like the crossed arms or one arm is straight and one arm is clasping or one hand is
Mhm.
clasping the other arm. So those are things you don't want to do when you stand up, right?
Correct. They close people off to you. You have to think of like your arms are the gateway to you. So if you have your arms crossed over yourself, you are essentially telling people, I actually may appear like I want you to connect with me, but I really don't. And all of these things are super subconscious things that the people in the room aren't going to realize that they're falling victim to. You are not going to realize that you're falling victim to. It's just going to be like, oh, I don't know why, but I don't really want to connect with them. And you just kind of, when you see them again, you're like, oh, okay. And we've all been around people who have just like magnetic personalities and their energy. You're like, I don't know what it is about them, but I need to like breathe the same air they breathe.
Yeah.
And it feels like a dramatic ish thing to say, but you want people to want you. Think of that old song, I want you to want me.
Yeah.
Like we want people to want to connect with us. And we don't necessarily want every single person to connect with us, right? Because we have our ideal clients and we have, who our message is supposed to reach. So then you have to find little phrases or nuances that you say that kind of is your gatekeeping phrase. Mine is I work with gals, gays, and theys to get out of their own way. So
Mm-hmm.
by me throwing that in there, I'm telling people a lot about myself, who I am, what I believe in, who I believe in helping, and people who are not for me are going to be like, oh, okay, I'm not for her. Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe I have a friend who could work with her, right? And people who are going to be like flock to me and they're like, oh my gosh, I love you. Hi.
Mm-hmm.
and and that's the kind of energy that I want. So that's my little tip and trick there, right? Because if you sell something specific, like let's just say like a realtor, right? Like realtors have their people that they want to work with, and I'm sure that you've talked about this uh, ad infinitum in any of your podcasts and things. Is if I stand up there and I say, "Hi, I'm Leah, and I'm a realtor with XYZ Realty, and I just really enjoy getting people in new homes. So if you know somebody who needs a new home, definitely have them reach out to me." Okay. Then if I were to say, hi, I'm Leah with XYZ Realty, and I'm a realtor, and I've been a realtor for XYZ years. I'm passionate about giving underprivileged women the opportunity to have independence and financial freedom through ownership of homes. I just was more specific And so now people can then say, oh, that's what she does. So I think that also the more specific you are, the better you are about getting people on your side. And when you're standing up there, also, you don't want to just stare at the wall. You want to make eye contact with the people around you. You want to make sure that you have a soft face and that you're not having that RBF that some people have. You want to have a lighthearted energy about yourself too, because that's what people are attracted to.
And what do we do with our hands? We know we can't cross them. What should we do with them?
I I gesticulate with my hands. So when I'm on stage, if you will, when I'm
Uh-huh.
performing, I use my hands as a prop. So I'll gesture one way to make one point, I'll gesture another way to make another point, or I'll just kind of have my hands almost in like a clapping or clasp center piece because I feel like this I know we're on video, but it's not going to be on video. So like when I have my arms crossed and I'm talking about things versus when I have my hands like in a praying stance, like that's inviting.
Mhm.
Even though my hands are technically closing off my body, the visualization of like holding your hands in a prayer stance is comfortable and inviting for people, right? Like you think of if you were in a room with people and nobody could speak and there was only body language happening. People who have their arms crossed and their face down are clearly showing people, I do not want you to talk to me. People that are maybe have their hands resting on their laps, maybe just have their hands open resting on their laps and are maybe looking around. They are clearly looking for some sort of connection and for someone to reach out and like make eye contact with and kind of have that moment together. So I think that if we lived in more of a space where people would just stop talking for a bit and observe the world around them, they would see so much more than what they're taking in when they listen and don't watch.
Yes. Yeah, I agree 100%. And I tell people, if you are the nervous networker, I tell them to do a lot of things. One of the things, though, I say is go find the person who looks as scared as you feel and start talking to them. They will love you for it because now you have let them just stand there and now they don't have to go out and seek people. You're coming to them. They're so grateful. They're not going to judge anything you say. They're going to be
Mhm.
happy to have that friendly confidant that starts a conversation. So, speaking of conversations, what can we do when we're talking to people that what can positive that our body language can be that extra rapport building in addition to what we're saying.
Yeah. So when you're talking to someone and especially if it's after the introductions and they kind of have an idea of who you are and what you do, if they walk up to you and start talking, now you know that you've piqued their interest enough that they want to connect with you in some way. So mirroring with your face is and your body language is a great thing. I would say unless the person has closed off body language. If you're sitting in a space, leaning in and talking to them, especially it's usually kind of loud in some of those places. So you want to be sure that you've set the tone of I am here to listen to you right now. And then let's say it's you and I, Faithann, and we're at a place and you come up to me and you're like, oh, Leah, it's so nice to meet you. I haven't seen you around before, but I feel like maybe I've heard your name mentioned. I'm just curious. What do you think is like the most rewarding thing about what you do? I could be like, the most rewarding thing about what I do, right? So like repeating
Mm.
people
Mhm.
and mimicking, or versus I have a question and I was curious if you could help me. Yeah, sure. What's the question? So I have this situation at work, blah, 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 and I just feel like I'm being ignored. Yeah, feeling like you're being ignored is really hard, right? Because by me repeating it, I'm telling you that I'm actively listening to our conversation and I'm not listening so that I can respond to you. I'm listening so that I can understand what you're saying, where you're coming from. Kind of like you said in the beginning, come from a place of curiosity, not judgment. When we can learn to do that with ourselves, we can learn to do that with other people. But if we come to ourselves with judgment, then there's no way we can go to other people with curiosity because
Mm.
we're all a mirror of things, right? So like if I have feelings about something and I get a vibe from you about the same things, then I'm likely to treat you how I treat myself about something. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because I have my own stuff that I need to move past and work through in my mind, you know?
Mm. So, repeating what the exact words that people are using when they're
Hmm.
describing how they're feeling is a
Yeah,
good way to show that you're actually listening. You're not just waiting for them to stop talking so that you can say your thing.
exactly. And clarifying what someone said, especially if someone said a lot of stuff for a minute, you could say, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. So it sounds like you're saying that this is happening for you and you've also experienced this and this is kind of the result of what you're going through. Do I have that right? That
Mm.
way the person's like, okay, is that what they're hearing me say? Maybe I need to change my delivery, or that's perfect. That's exactly what I was saying. I'm so glad that you understand me. Also, like to me, like having an engaged face, right? So like I have a very, what would be the word? Expressive. I have a very expressive face. So when I have a feeling about something, it's not the easiest thing for me to hide it in that moment. And in a non arrogant way, I look at myself in the mirror and talk sometimes just to see what my face is doing. I like talking to people on video so that I can see what my face is doing also, because
Mm.
I feel like having eyebrows kind of raised shows some interest in the things and like being aware of how open or closed your eyes are.
Hey, networkers! If you want your next one-to-one to go beyond swapping business cards, Faithann's got something for you. She created a free resource called 10 Questions to Ask in a One-to-One. It's packed with thoughtful questions that help you get to know someone and leave a lasting impression. Click on the 10 questions link in the show notes and download this resource today.
So, is the more open they are, the better?
I think so. If someone to me has like closed-ish eyes, but I think it depends. I think you have to do a lot of people reading. And because if the person you're talking to is more subdued and you're coming at them with like big wide face, that's going to be a lot for them. So you kind of have to read and say, okay, I need to maybe tone my, if I'm doing a scale of 1 to 10 and my most exuberant is a 10 and this person is clearly showing a 4. I need to turn myself down to like a 6 because I still want to be a little more elevated than they are, but I don't want to super match that kind of closer to 0 facial expression. Does that make sense?
Yes, I mean, I've talked about that too, with the matching and mirroring, because you meet all kinds of different personalities when you're in these rooms, and there are always the big and boisterous ones, and they would be wise to calibrate when they're talking to somebody like me. I'm naturally really really quiet and I talk slowly. So when
Mhm.
you come in with this big energy and we're mismatched. So I tell them, I tell people the big and boisterous needs to come down. But the other side of that is if you have a very shy, quiet, slow person, you're going to frustrate somebody who is very outgoing. So, just for the sake of being more matched, you need to kind of step it up. Like when you're around those big people, you're going to frustrate them. If you're not, you got to step it up a little bit. And then the big and boisterous people would be wise to tone down. I think we could, be more comfortable within these mismatches. You don't have to come exactly like what you were saying. You don't have to come exactly to the same level, but you do need to adjust a little bit depending on how energetic the person you're talking to is.
And it's definitely a more, in my experience, masculine vibe to be this loud, boisterous, this is who I am type, and with very little willingness to budge. And when I say masculine type, I don't necessarily mean a man. I just mean masculine energy because women and men can have masculine and feminine energy. It's almost like that type A personality of someone who's going to come in you know, not scared of ruffling feathers, not scared of saying anything, but to the more reserved person, that's pretty intimidating. And that person is probably not going to try to talk to you. And if you try to talk to them, they're probably going to try to end the conversation as soon as possible, especially if you come to them with that kind of big, sweeping energy of like, this is my show. You're just a viewer,
Mm,
because yes, we are all the main character of our own stories, but recognizing that every single person we meet is the main character of their story. So our stories intersecting isn't always, well, I'm the main character of my story, so then I must be the main character here also.
right. It's
Right.
yeah. We have to be very curious about each other. That's the only way these true
Hmm.
connections work, and we have to think about beyond this conversation. Like that person that you are coming up to with your loud and busy energy, and you can tell they're a little bit more reserved. Their mother may be your ideal client, but
Hmm.
it's you're only one introduction away from your ideal client at any given time. So it's so important to think long term as we're moving about in rooms of people we don't know. Now, I have a question. Okay, so one of the things that I struggle with is getting jokes. So I'm not a funny person. Like I'm not witty. I'm very, very caring and
Hmm.
empathetic, but I'm not witty. And so, what would you say? What's like you have that thing about where you said when you're out of breath, you make a joke about it. So I know that it's frustrating when people make jokes and I don't get them. I don't get the jokes. And I know that that can be a rapport breaking, but I just don't know what to do. I'm just not, sometimes I don't get the joke. Do you have any advice?
I know I didn't mention this, but I am an improviser, and I perform improv, I teach improv here in Oklahoma City, and people are always like, I don't know how you get on stage and do improv. And then I say, well, you already do improv. And they're like, no, I don't. And I said, well, this conversation wasn't scripted, right? Like we're just going off, we're just yes anding each other and going down this path together. If you ever see me in a show, you will see that there are many times that I do not get the joke and everyone else gets the joke. I honestly stand there for a minute, kind of detach, and you can see my brain thinking. And then I usually have the aha moment. Because as a neurodivergent person, it's kind of like if someone's like, hey, can you go do blah, 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 blah? And I'll be like, what? And then I'll say, oh, yeah, before they repeat themselves. My brain has to buffer sometimes. And I need a buffering moment. So sometimes I will then turn the situation into a funny moment for me, having a delayed reaction to the joke. Or if I feel like I'm trying to be jokey and it's not uh, perceived necessarily, I will then over explain the joke, which then sometimes makes it funny because I'm just now like beating it into the ground of like, well, because like this and then that and then this. And the thing is, like, as long as you don't allow yourself to feel embarrassed, because there's nothing to feel embarrassed about. We have different points of references. We all come from different generations, different upbringings, different experiences, different social groups, just like pop culture references. Some people are really nuanced into Lord of the Rings stuff. I don't know anything about like sci-fi Lord of the Rings stuff. So when anybody brings that up, I then kind of double down on my like, yeah, it's kind of like when you just have like this lightsaber in your pocket, and I'll just be like, I'll just make a reference to like the two things that I do know to show them like I really don't know what you're talking about, but I'm gonna yes and you.
Oh, okay.
And so just because you don't understand the joke per se, unless, and here's the thing, Faithann, sometimes jokes are in poor taste. And when jokes are in poor taste, sometimes us more empathetic people who are more in tune with their feelings, are like, ew, I don't like how I felt with that, and I don't understand why it's a joke.
Okay.
So I wonder if some of those times that you're thinking about are one of those experiences of like you just get an ew feeling, and you're like, That's not funny.
Mm, I don't know. I'm just so
Or,
focused on
yeah,
the fact that I'm not getting it, and I know that it's frustrating the person that I don't know if it's in poor taste or not. I'm just so like, "Oh, darn it. He wants to be funny, but I'm not," or she was trying to be funny, but and then I feel bad. I'm like, "Oh." You know?
but when you go to like a comedy show, you're not going to laugh at everything the person says because sometimes the joke wasn't for you. And so I would just liken it up to, I mean, I tend to be pretty honest. I'm like, I don't get it. And I'll
Okay.
just, with a very serious face, be like, I don't understand what the joke was. Can you over explain it to me like I'm a 5-year old? And then maybe then I
Okay.
can see the humor in it. And so, so that's kind of what I don't know. I'm a big proponent of just being really transparent to people.
Okay.
And and if someone says something that's over your head, I would be like, can you like dumb that down for me? Or like explain it to me like this is the first time I'm learning about it.
Okay.
Because we as experts take for granted that we are experts in our field. And we take for granted that we had a moment in our lives where we weren't experts and we didn't know all these things. And now we do. So sometimes if we're interacting with somebody who doesn't have the same sort of base knowledge or experience, which is most people, we kind of have to change you wouldn't explain to a 10-year-old how the process of water filtration works the same way that you would explain to a colleague if you work in water filtration. So yes, a 10-year-old knows what water is, right? Like there's things that we have to remember. Okay, this person might not know what this is. So instead of assuming they don't, I kind of start with saying, if I say anything that goes over your head or you don't understand what it is, please stop me, and I want to explain it to you.
Okay. That's a good tip. Like if you know you're about to get kind of technical in your own field, giving that
Hmm.
little warning or that invitation to stop, please stop me if I'm that could be a really great rapport building
Hmm.
tool to use. And I tell people try to if you're doing something that is very niche, like try to compare it with something
Hmm.
that's so
Hmm.
important, and that's what I have in my elevator pitches. I tell people, the fairy godparent, you're like the fairy godparent. Now we got to figure out what how you help people because you want the happily ever after. That's what you want to talk about. You don't want to talk about the dress that Cinderella got. You want
Hmm.
to talk about she got married. So what is your version of she got married in the way you help people? We got to make it very, very simple. And so, but I like that, telling people ahead of time, anticipating that you may start going down a path that they're going to get lost and issuing the invitation, hey, stop me if. I like that a lot. Real quick, tell the listeners, and the only reason I know what the yes and is because my sister, when she was in high school, she was in drama and she told me all about improv. So tell the listeners what the yes and concept is.
So in improv specifically, and also I think to have better, more fulfilling relationships, uh, the idea of yes and is crucial. So if we're going to compare it to comedy and improv, if you and I are on stage together and I say something like, I name you Margaret and I say, Margaret, the alien spaceships have just landed, right? So I said something a little weird and wild, but that's what improv is. We're adults playing make believe. Okay. And you say as Margaret now, no, they're not. I
Mm.
don't even know why we're here. You've just completely derailed where we could have gone. You've negated the gifts that I've given. And now I don't feel supported. I don't feel seen. I don't feel safe. Now, if you then say, let's say it goes a different way, and I say, Margaret, do you see that the alien spaceships have just landed? You'd be like, listen, Joanne, I've already talked to them and we have lunch scheduled at 2. Do you want to go? Right? Like, and I can tell you as a listener to this exchange that we just fake had, your vibe changed when I said the first thing. I think that you felt like, ooh, yeah, like that would be really rejecting. And then the second one, you're like, oh, I like that. Like you just yes anded my gift, meaning yes, what you just told me, I'm going to validate as reality and true. And is going to say, I'm contributing to it with a gift for you also.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
And so it's super important because yes and allows the other person to know that you heard them, that you believe them, whatever it is that they're saying, you believe them. And maybe you're going to offer up something that validates their feeling or experience. So, like you said, I think metaphors and comparisons are crucial for people to understand certain things. And some people are better at explaining those than others, and that's okay. None of us are going to be perfect at all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of neurodivergence in the world, and some people don't pick up on social cues as well. And some people can't read the room very well. And the thing is that everything is a learned skill. So until you realize, or someone tells you, or you are open to learning where your deficits are, you can't fix them or improve them if you want to.
Yeah, that's great. So the yes and what Leah is saying is instead of opposition, it's addition. Take what somebody's giving you and validate it and then add to it instead of rejecting it. I think that's one of the reasons why also I cannot stand it when I'm interrupted in a networking meeting. I'm having a conversation with somebody and someone comes up and interrupts our conversation to hand me something, business card, flyer about an upcoming event. I just can't stand that because there's this vibe going on between me and the person I'm talking to, and now you've interrupted it. You have not yes anded. You have like, I need to interrupt this conversation because my little piece of paper with this event on it is more important than the yes ands that are happening between the two people already engrossed in a conversation. Thank you very much. You know, we don't need your help. We don't need you interrupting to your event is not that important to me. And now it's really not important because you couldn't wait.
And it's one of those things that's like a read the room situation, right? Or even if let's err on the side of assuming best intent. So let's say that person is like, I have to go to a thing. I don't have any more time here, but I really want Faithann to have this flyer, right? But I see that you're engaged in a conversation. Maybe I didn't think in that moment to be like, find someone who I know that you are already like associated with and be like, hey, can you give this to her? I know she's in a conversation right now, right? Like having that think outside of what I need in this moment and think also of people around you, you know. But that's a really good point, is being aware of, but it just kind of comes to being aware and being aware of the room and the situations. Because we've also been in rooms where you see somebody just standing there on the side and everyone's networking and everyone's talking. That person's just standing there like, can this be over? Can I just go?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I look at those people as like, that's a person that I need to help. Even if it's just like, is this your first time here? I remember when I had my first time, I was also super scared. But everyone here is really nice. You'll be good. You know, I hope you guys come back. You know, just something warm. And even if you're not that kind of person who's going to go out and try to talk to a random person, be that person today. Maybe they need you to be that. And if you didn't reach out to them, maybe they'd never show up to another networking thing again because they'd be like, they're just not for me.
Well said.
But maybe you reaching out and giving that olive branch, reaching your hand out and be like, hey, can I help with something? Or like, if they're standing by the coffee, be like, you go through coffee so fast around here, right? Like, you don't have to be funny. You don't have to, we can just say very obvious statements. Like, it's really loud in here, you know, like,
Oh yeah. I love that.
right?
We can just say very obvious statements. I
Yeah.
love that.
We can state the obvious anytime. And because a lot of times people are thinking the obvious, but they don't say it because they're afraid of being dumb or being perceived as a certain way. And it's like, I think that the more we show people who we are and that we're just a regular person and none of us are better than the other people here.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us may be years into our business. Some of us might just be thinking, I might want to start a business. And either way, no matter where we are, like we can still find points of connection. And and I thought of something too when we were just talking about the yes anding. There are going to be things that people say that you don't agree with, and that the idea of saying yes and is painful, cringy, uh, just not something that you want to do. So I have a couple phrases that I like. One of them is like, "Oh wow, that's interesting," or "Huh, I never thought of that," or "That's curious," right? Like, because those are still pretty neutral phrases. Even if I think what you said is complete insanery, I can not make you feel super rejected by what you said and just say, "Oh, I don't think I've ever heard that perception before. That's interesting."
Mm. Yeah.
Right? Because you're still stating a fact, right? Like without being, too judgmental on someone, because also people have a hard time conveying their thoughts and feelings and ideas sometimes. And I like to, especially if you're kind of in the beginning of networking and stuff, can I speak in the rough draft?
Ah.
Can I speak in rough draft? Because then you're setting the stage for, I might not be able to articulate this as well as I want to. So
Oh.
can you try to hear what I'm saying without any weird emotional undertone?
I love that. Can I speak in rough draft? I love that. That's so cool.
It's a great thing for relationships if you're speaking to your partner or a family member and we have this like innate thing to be like, why would you say it like that? And it's just, so if we can bring to the table like, I'm going to speak in rough draft and I want you to give me grace, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah.
Oh, I love that, Leah. I love that. Thank you for that. I'm going to use that. Well, as we wrapped up this episode, thank you again for coming on and sharing insights about our body language and validating people and mirroring and this rough draft concept. I love hosting good guests because they always teach me something. So I have one question for you as we wrap up. Leah, if you could tap your early networking self on the shoulder and give her insight that you didn't have, what would that be?
I think it would be, it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay. Like it's okay to be in rough draft right now,
Mm-hmm.
because we all know so many people who started businesses and maybe they were like, because you kind of have to just do something, see how it works, and pivot. And I feel like the younger version of me has a very black and white perception of, if this is what I say I do, I have to do this one thing and this is all I can do.
Mm,
And if it doesn't work, I just have to double down, as
mm,
opposed to, I'm going to first go this direction. And I'm open to seeing how things change and what I end up doing, right? Because like when I first started saying I wanted to do coaching, I tried to find something super specific and it didn't feel like a lot of people resonated with it. So I was like, okay, I can still incorporate that into what I do with coaching without that being the focus.
okay.
So it's just a matter of like being willing to be flexible.
Yeah, I love that, being flexible. Well, thanks again. Where can people find you if they want some coaching and some confidence building with Leah?
Yeah, so you can find me on the Instagram and the Facebook.com, and it's just Leah, Leah Rose, Rose, and then Tangren, Tangren. And I also, my website is lrtcoaching.com.
lrtcoaching.com.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that is a great conversation. Go and check Leah out if you need some coaching. And thank you very much, listeners, for being along for this great conversation. And Leah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Faithann. This was really great. I appreciate it.
Yeah. You've been listening to the Networkers Tour Guide podcast with Faithann Basor. Share this episode with a friend and be sure to come back next week for more networking tips and tricks from the Networkers Tour Guide.